Welcome, everyone, to Awesome Truth, a wrestling book club. I'm your host, Steve Semino, and with me, as always, is my co host, Walter Wank. Hey, Walters.
Hello, Steven. How's it going?
My friend, it is going very well. We are back on Awesome Truth, and today, Walt, we are finishing up our little Mania run. We've talked about WrestleManias of all shapes and sizes. We did our weird little preview, last year's review watch along, and now we are talking about another very bad WrestleMania, which of course is WrestleMania 9.
I wasn't going to editorialize this year's WrestleMania necessarily, but there certainly are some parallels between this year's and WrestleMania 9.
Yes,
So.
which is when we've decided to do this documentary, which of course is called, of course twice, which is called WrestleMania 9 Becoming a Spectacle. I remember asking you, like, why did they make a WrestleMania 9 documentary? Like, I don't understand. Who cares? And then obviously realized a week or two later, oh, Mania at Vegas. They're both the Vegas Manias.
Yeah, and yeah, between that and then the match quality parallels, or card quality parallels, I'd say that's kind of where it ends.
Yes, that's true. I will note, Walt, to pull back the curtain a tad, we've already recorded this episode and ran into some technical
Mm.
issues. So if we speed run through this documentary, it's not because it isn't that good. It's because we've already had these conversations before.
If it sounds rehearsed, that's why. Also, too, if we might spare you from a lot of Terry talk.
I was going to say, we've really honed our Hulk Hogan conversation, got it down from 20 minutes to probably a solid 10. So yeah, we're not going to ramble about Terry. We'll pointedly tell you why he's the worst.
We got out all of our frustrations in the practice run.
But this documentary, though, I will say, first off, if you haven't watched it, it's on Peacock. It came out around Mania time, and it's an hour and 40 minutes long. So it's like a feature film length documentary, which is a weird choice, certainly for Peacock documentaries. Usually these things are a tight, 55. So I was a little floored when I saw, oh my God, this is going to be like a 2 night watch. I think we both had to stretch this out a little bit. But it does have some stuff to it. It has the thing that you and I have been talking about that we like from a lot of these docs, which they occasionally do and occasionally do not, and that's make use of a lot of old footage, a lot of behind the scenes stuff, a lot of stuff from the past that nobody's seen. We both get so tired of seeing the same old that it is refreshing to see something and be like, I didn't know that. I've never seen that before. That is genuinely new to me.
Yeah, and they also build this kind of as the first time they ever sent camera crew backstage to documentary style, in this and filmed everything for the hope of putting together this doc like 40 years later, I guess. But but if that is true, which seems like a thing that isn't true, but let's just pretend like this is the first WrestleMania they sent a camera backstage to document everything. Then yeah, that it would be unprecedented, and you do kind of feel that from the people in this doc that are seeing the camera, and they kind of they really don't know how to react, which I thought was kind of interesting. But yeah, so in that case, it's definitely archive heavy, and if this truly was the first time, then it was worth kind of revealing. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, it is there is, like you said, it is sort of crazy that no one ever had this idea before. Let's document the prep to Mania. And also the fact that they said let's document the prep to Mania and then sat on it for 31 years. Like what was the plan originally and why did that get derailed? But yeah, the responses you see from Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, they all basically look at the camera and say some version of like, what is this? Why are you doing this? Because it was 30 years ago was a much different time in the business. Like whether they had done this, occasionally or like whether this was truly the first time, there definitely was not so much of a willingness to reveal your true self, especially backstage. Like that's well documented as not a thing. So I can see why in '93 or whatever, everyone was confused. Like, should I be in character now, or can I truly just be myself, waiting for my job to start? So I can see why that's interesting, and it does sort of warrant and deserve some sort of documentary, some sort of approach, and a chance to watch it. No matter how many years later.
And there's a ton of footage too. It's not like they recorded a few beats just for like the beginning of the Coliseum, or like the deleted scenes from for like a Coliseum videotape of WrestleMania 9. Like they really did film the crap out of this thing. So I guess they just needed a streaming service to emerge
Yeah,
from the ether of
in
technology.
3 decades, they're gonna invent this thing called Peacock, and we're gonna be all over it. It's gonna be
Yeah,
great.
but I will say they did, like, in this particular case. I mean, despite the fact that this came out 40 years after filming this, they did invest a lot into this documentary, which I did appreciate. Like, this is the first time I've ever seen Basil DeVito on camera. This
Yeah, world
they
famous Basil DeVito. He's all over this thing.
Yeah, he's the hottest name in wrestling right now. Retrospective wrestling, I should say. But they got, like, it's the first time I ever heard Lex Luger sit down for one of these things before, at least
Yeah,
from
and
my
he's very
recollection.
charming too. Like has is haven't seen him. I know he's found his faith and he's certainly changed since Miss Elizabeth passed. But he seems like the sweetest like older man now. Like he seems like a true delight.
Humbled would be the word I'd use, I
Yeah, it's
guess, in
true.
some way.
Humbled is a better way to put it. Like humbled by the death around him and the destruction of his own existence and all that horrible stuff.
Yeah, but he did. But I will say, though, I think Lex watching this exclusive, never before seen footage of him from 1993 at this major event, there was a level of genuine reaction from the performers. Like, even Shawn Michaels is like, "Oh wow, that's kind of weird to see," or
Yeah,
you know,
why Shawn Michaels comments very a lot on they filmed a little vignette of him backstage and it's literally just the shot is like looking up at his crotch. And not
right?
even in like a sexy way, like in a weird way.
Yeah,
He's just sitting there in like cut off jeans and it's just zoomed and it's just very and Sean's like what instantly he's like, why are we doing this? Why is this the angle?
yeah. Well, I mean, WWE Productions has certainly improved since 1993 in many ways,
Yeah,
but
we've seen them fetishize and sexualize Shawn Michaels countless of times in the years. That was the least sexy Shawn Michaels has ever been on WWE cameras.
yeah. And so watching them watch this footage back was kind of intriguing to a certain degree. And the other thing I'm trying to front load the positives and the pros right now, as you if
Which
you
the
can't.
documentary does too. Oddly enough, the first half is I say the strongest half for sure.
Yeah, but I will say, learning about the WWE's history with Vegas boxing promotion and Caesars, like, I had never known that Vince, like, promoted this Sugar Ray Leonard fight from the '80s during the height of like Hulkamania. Like, that is kind of interesting to know. And also, it's like, wow, okay, that explains why they eventually did try this WrestleMania out in Vegas in the '90s. So
It just shows how
yeah,
starved you and I are for new information, right? We're like, oh,
yes.
that little tidbit. We're like salivating. Oh, Vince promoted the boxing card we didn't know of. Holy shit, that's genuine news. Wow.
But also, it's like, I guess it does make sense why Vegas at some point would be like, yeah, let's just give this Vince guy a shot at, like, promoting our fights. It's like, he's clearly doing something right with this whole WrestleMania thing.
Yeah,
So
he knows how to do a big show at the very least. So yeah, there's a natural crossover. We do fights. He does sort of fights. Like let's just mush it together.
yeah, it's fake fighting, real fighting.
That's it.
There are there's a level of pageantry in both, I would say. But
Yeah,
any other positives on your end?
no, you nailed it. Like the build up and the backstage stuff is all fascinating and new again, which we like unique, different. Like that's all stuff that it started built. And I remember texting you being like, "This is great." Like I would watch, 30 of these, and I really would. Like if they have, and I presume they have this footage for many of the manias out there. If they had, here's the build up to this mania, why it existed, even the bad ones. Like I'd watch 30, 40 minutes on like the backstage machinations of how manias come together. I think that's all really good
Yeah.
stuff. Where I think this doc loses me and you and probably most people is then it's like breaks down like okay, here's the nuts and bolts of basically every match at Mania 9. And Mania 9, as we hinted at the top, is well known for being a very bad card with a lot of shitty matches. So the idea that you're going to break these all down and talk to me about them is just naturally going to, I think, fall flat like a it's a bad card with bad shit. Just I don't need to learn more about Crush versus Doink, and instead I get 10 minutes on Crush versus Doink and why it was so epic and important.
Right. I mean, the thing that really plagues this is there's a level of insincerity with this revisiting of a bad WrestleMania. It's like, now I'll go to my grave saying that two doinks are just an illusion was great booking. It's like, shut the fuck up. Sam Roberts, you need to shut the fuck up, you sycophant. Like,
Yes.
just shut up. Like,
Yeah,
no one,
WWE employed Sam Roberts, insists that the multiple doink ending is just like the most unique finish he's ever seen in his entire life.
yeah, it's like, what is the Undertaker the only person who can actually speak candidly about how something kind of sucked balls? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Taker, I guess because he faced Giant Gonzalez, which is regarded as a stinker, gets to admit, yeah, it was a stinker.
yeah, but like, don't tell me that Razor Ramon Bob Backlund was this great cross, like, juxtaposition of classic traditional wrestling and
Honestly,
like,
don't tell us anything on this thing is good. Like it's we'll get into this too, but like obviously it's in the name of the doc becoming a spectacle. The sort of their grand thesis is like this is the first spectacle mania, which may or may not be true, but if you're talking about it as like, not just like a unique event in W history, but like a important one or a like memorable one, like that's one where I think it's just easy to say no, 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 no. Because if it's memorable for all the worst reasons. And this is not a documentary, as you hinted, that says like, oh, this was a like, we dropped the ball here, we fucked this up. They do not really they won't go that way at all. They'll sort of tell you that parts of it were inferior, but overall they're committed to presenting the narrative that this is a very special and good mania, which is not one I'm willing to stomach.
yeah, I mean, we can debate this for years, and people have debated this for years. But the fact that they had to pull Hulk Hogan's ass back out into this to like move ticket sales is probably a bad sign for the rest of your card
Yeah,
on paper at
when
least.
the whole narrative for the years previous was like Hogan is dragging us down, Hogan's an anchor, he's outdated, like we got to move on. And the second they run into, I guess, quote unquote issues, they're pulling the Hogan, emergency line, and that's just real. It's very indicative of where they were at, and their complete Vince's complete inability to get away from Hulk Hogan.
And the beefer lifeline too. Let's not
Yeah.
forget that they had to pull the corpse of Brutus Beefcake
And
out.
Jimmy Hart gets to come along, like all the Hogan sycophants get to come along for a nice payday. So
Yeah,
it's not just Hulk coming back and getting his; everybody else gets theirs as well. All of his buddies,
yeah, right. Well, except for Bret Hart, who
except
did not get what he quite wanted.
man. I mean, that's obviously the key part, and like you said on this slightly quicker episode, I think we really need to get into that because it's what everyone talks about. Like you said, the initial idea is Hogan comes in for a tag match, which with the aforementioned Beefer. Versus Ted DiBiase and IRS, a total nothing of a match. Like they show it, and the ending is DiBiase and IRS leave their money behind, and Hogan breaks open the briefcase, steals their money, and gives it to the fans, who I guess seem excited about everything Hogan, even that stupid idea. So maybe they had some sense of what they were doing, But it is just it did not seem cool. I don't think it seemed that cool back then, and certainly I do not think it's cool 30 years later. So
I assume that this crowd was made up of the world's biggest marks. Like, to me, I feel like,
well, we know Vladimir was there, right?
yeah,
Our
I stay.
previous episodes, Vladimir super fan.
Yeah, that only reinforces my previous statement. No, but it's like akin to filming wrestling at like the Disney lot, where it's like people are like, "Cool, Hulk Hogan," oh, and then shiny giant ape monster
Yeah.
and dead and zombie. It's so in that sense, it's like, yeah, they should have given the crowd a lot of Hulk Hogan because it didn't feel like a typical wrestling crowd. And this is also, we're talking about Vegas in like the '90s, where they completely rebranded to be super kid friendly, like, so I'm not surprised that they kind of just got this like crowd that just like still was hanging on to like Hulkamania, like, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
Which is part of the disconnect between what they perceive as a successful show and what we perceive and what history sort of perceives as a successful show. Like you said, I'm sure in the moments they A, sold more tickets, and B, got a way better crowd reaction because they brought Hulk Hogan out twice, you know? So on their end, it's like, this is a no brainer. It was either going to be nothing or it was going to be mildly something. And with Hogan, it got us to mildly something, you know? But then the flaws in that are apparent immediately after because they have nowhere to go with it. Hogan's an asshole. You've alienated your star. You've alienated not just Bret, but a lot of the other guys backstage. Like, it just creates a whole litany of issues they could have avoided if they had just stuck the course and tried to figure something out. Instead, you pull that ripcord, and all of a sudden, the problems come along with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can analyze history once again to determine that this was bad hotshot booking.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what I definitely didn't need is another retelling of this with the same two people that have told their
Oh
side of
my
this
god.
story 1,000 times. Like, I didn't need another example of Bret Hart being like this bitter as fuck old guy, like like still stewing over these like booking decisions. It's like, part of it just becomes this philosophical, diametrically opposed debate of like business versus wrestling. It's just like,
You mean
sorry,
Bret
Brett.
versus Terry, right?
Yeah, right. Terry's all business. Brett's all like wrestling and honor. It's like, yeah, I think the business won today, and I don't know if I disagree with that.
Yeah, it's the toughest thing. Like, you and I love Brett's book, and you and I are on record as saying how much we hate Hulk for so many reasons, you know?
Yeah,
But when it comes to something like this, Brett just seems the fool, you know? Like, not only because this happened in 93, 4 years later they screw him over way worse, and he seems even more blindsided, as if like, I couldn't believe they're doing this to me. It's like, they did it to you already. They did a smaller scale version
yeah,
of you already. The same guy, you know, did a more obvious version of this. Like, why were your guard not up permanently afterwards?
yeah,
But even beyond that, like, he still, like you said, he still takes it so hard. Like, like you said, we see Brad. The whole thing is, a lot of this documentary is the guys watching the old footage, as you said, and so we see Brett literally taking it in, and he's reacting in a way where you're like, this, there's still a wound there, like, he has a
yeah,
wound related to WrestleMania IX that is just so much deeper than it should be. And then we cut to Terry, and Terry's bullshitting, giving his own take on it, which seems 98%, fabricated. But at the same time, you're like, I mean, what's Hulk supposed to do? Like, he understands that the belt goes to the guy who brings in the most money. The belt goes to the biggest star most of the time. So, and he was the biggest star, and so he gets the belt. Like, it's not rocket science, And Brett seems to think like, well, I'm better at wrestling, so I should have the belt. And it's like, that's
yeah.
almost never how this works. Then
Dude, this
every
isn't
now
boxing.
every now and then they do give the best wrestler the belt. Usually it's to placate the fans or to placate the guy or girl to keep them happy, like, which they do with Brett a lot of the time, But most of the time, the biggest draw gets to have the main events and gets to have the gold. Like, that's just, I don't know why that concept still seems so foreign to him after, given that he spent his entire life in this business. It should know it better than anybody.
Right. But if I wanted to like hear this breakdown again, I would just reread Brett's book. Like, this was not the place to have this debate with these two people once again. Like, when I
Or
back to
have this debate, like, put them in the same room. That's maybe more
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, right.
When
Like,
have we ever seen Brett and Terry in the same room? I don't think ever really.
no, they just recreate that thing they did with Michaels and Brett a few like 10 years ago, where they just like did blow by blow of every week of Raw, where they were just throwing slights at each other
And Shawn just
live.
like, I was blacked out for that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I mean, that'd be more interesting than this. But back to what we were saying earlier is hearing from Lex Luger. And Lex Luger objectively is a less interesting human and person wrestler for the most part, but in this case, because we don't hear from him, like Rick Steiner, like I want to hear more from Rick Steiner and Scott Steiner. Scott Steiner's never sat down for one of these stupid things. Like, what does he have to say about? Like, he's crazy. Like, I want to hear more. What the
Yeah.
hell is that guy's thinking?
Give him a mic for 20 minutes and just put it all on camera.
Yeah, I'll sit there for Steiner math all day. Like, that's amazing. But also the fun anecdote of Lex Luger talking about how he's like, oh, I'm going to coast this WrestleMania debut against Mr. Perfect. Like, Kurt's got this. He's in the driver's seat. I'm just going to chill. And then Kurt gets in the ring and goes, so what are we doing? He's like, what do you mean what we're doing? You're the one who usually leads these things. He's like, I got nothing.
Yeah,
Uh,
perfect. Presumably, it's just sandbags him and ribs him on the biggest stage possible, just for fun, I guess.
yeah, I really hope he was ripping him.
Yeah, that or he was fucked up out of his mind. Who knows? But he
Yeah,
probably a rib based on what Lex thinks, and that is funny to go out there and care so little about your job that you'll just make Lex get all flustered for fun.
yeah, or it was just that easy just to fuck with Lex Luger.
But yeah, 100% the case. Like there's they don't they're they've walked this line between kayfabe and reality before, where they've admitted, they've acknowledged that reactions and history and all that is applicable to talk about in these documentaries. I wish that had been the case here. I wish we had focused on the stuff you're talking about, the stuff that's new and different, instead of regurgitating the same points and letting Terry share. Like, it's just, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, it's just so embarrassing that Hulk gets to just talk. Like, I know he's Hulk Hogan, and
Yeah,
I know he gets to have a voice. Like, I'm not saying silence Hulk Hogan, though I would love to do that. But it's exasperating as a fan, and knowing that the people who watch these things are psychos like us. I just don't think Hogan's opinion is well received at this point or regarded as objective in any way. And so I hate that he gets center stage to just share his version with pretty much
yeah.
ease.
And the biggest question I have is was it a jet ski or was it Randy Savage sucker punching the guy? How did this guy get this crazy black eye before this
Did you
match?
know about that? Like, I remember the black eye, but I didn't remember anything. I think I always assumed it was just something like that.
Well, if you listen to Hogan, he always talks about the jet ski that did this, like there's like the like the Kennedy assassination where the jet ski does this 180 360 like frog splash on his face. It's like jet skis don't do that, bro.
And
What's
also, don't
happening?
if you own a jet ski, you've probably ridden it hundreds of times. Like, do you forget how to ride it this one time? Like, it doesn't. I don't think that's really how they work. They're meant to be pretty not idiot proof, but I just doesn't seem like an athlete like Hulk Hogan should be having so many issues with his jet ski.
Yeah, but either way, I'd never heard the Savage rumor before, so that was fun and new to think
It
about.
sucks. It's really a shame that we lost Macho so early because, like, think how good he'd be at this point. Like, he has so many stories that went down with him. There's so
Yeah.
much macho lore that everyone just pieces together. Like, there's the Stephanie thing. There's, like, his whole psycho '80s run with everything with
Mm.
Elizabeth. Like, not that he should be off the hook for all. Like, I would love to hear his side because we hear the nonstop Terry bullshit. I wish we had gotten to hear some of Macho's side of all of these stories, good and bad. Like, there's a wealth of stuff there that we'll never really know.
Sadly, the only side of the story we ever get is through his music.
Yes,
So
he did leave that behind for us, I guess, right? Which is very gripping and touching.
it's
His takes in
actually
there.
it begs more questions than gives us answers, but
But
that's a
Vince,
separate episode. As we
a separate episode in our archives, awesometruth.libsyn.com.
yes,
All
yes.
right. Yeah. So what do you now that this doc is over? Like, I would give this, I think, a treat because I did enjoy that it was something that a little special. But like I said, I just hate their way of doing things, and I hope that if we're gonna dig in the archives, that this is not the approach we're gonna take in perpetuity. Is rehashing these conversations over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, next time give us more exclusive behind the scenes footage, never before seen footage, exclusive interviews, never before seen interviewees. Give us more of that. I don't need to do another episode of Bruce Pritchard where we go blow by blow on a previous card. Like we've done that already. I've sat through that podcast. I've watched that RF shoot video like interview. Like I've already done this. So, but if you're gonna do it, I don't want rose colored glasses on everything either.
Yeah. I swear they brought Bruce back in part to be like, you're gonna be the like WWE voice of, from the heavens on all these fucking documentaries. Like you were there for all of it, technically, and you're gonna be our mouthpiece, sharing our, Vince's viewpoint basically on everything that has happened in the last 40 years. Like he does on his podcast, but just in a more sanctioned capacity on a
Yeah.
on a documentary or on whatever.
Yeah, really living through the Vince is in jail and giving booking decisions over the phone
Yes.
scenario, except technically he's not in jail, but same idea.
Yeah, he's in not working here anymore jail.
Yeah, I need you to give a strong review of WrestleMania IX and this look back doc.
It is weird to have this doc though, where plays a large role, obviously, as the boss of the company, but is not on camera. Like they go to some pains, I would say, to not mention him unless they have to, which is fascinating. It's like at some points it's like, oh, of course Vince was running the show, Vince did this, Vince did that, and at some points it's like, it's like someone up on high was pulling the strings. Who was it? We don't have to mention their name. Don't worry about it, but. We did this, we did that, and it's a weird dynamic now because he's persona non grata, but you can't tell the stories without him. So it's a weird little thing.
Yeah, but was he ever sitting down for a WrestleMania 9 doc?
No, and we don't need it. It would have been archived Vince footage or whatever. We don't need
Right.
any more than we already got.
Right.
It's just seeing them try and untangle a little bit how to do this without with a possible sex
Yeah.
maniac being and criminal potentially being part of these stories and having to sort of weave around that every now and then. It's
Right.
interesting gymnastics they have to do.
Yeah, just insert more Basil DeVito talking about like attendance figures. There you go. Perfect cutaway.
So what do you think? Do you give this the treat ranking, Walt? Where do you stand?
Yeah, I enjoyed it when I enjoyed it, and I yawned through the moments I didn't necessarily appreciate, but ultimately I yawned less than I um, not yawned, I guess. What's the opposite of yawn? Smile, smirk.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it closes the book on Mania season, obviously for us for the most part, and it certainly wraps up. Hopefully, we don't have to talk about WrestleMania 9 ever again. This is the definitive statement that we didn't really need, but it exists and is better than it should be. And now I think we can slide that one into the record books for eternity.
I hope so.
Fingers crossed. If you want to watch WrestleMania 9 becoming a spectacle, it is on Peacock. And you can check that out. And if you want to hear more Awesome Truth, you can find our archives, awesometruth.libsyn.com. All our old episodes are there. And subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts are delivered for episodes new and old. Walt, great to talk to you about WrestleMania. I guess we are going to talk about WrestleMania a little more because we're going to do Keith Ellie Greenberg's new book, huh?
Yeah, we got that review coming. I didn't want to correct you in this recording,
Yes.
but we're not quite out of the woods yet on WrestleMania.
But at least that's us going back to our roots and reading an actual reported book. So I'm excited for that. That's a different sort of thing. So
and more Basil DeVito. So
more Basil DeVito. That's right. This is Basil DeVito month, huh?
oh yeah, this is more than we've ever seen of him.
Sprinkle a little basil on it.
Oh yeah, yes.
All right, well, keep your ears peeled for more WrestleMania, I guess. Thank you all so much for listening, and remember, the truth will set you free.